The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, it's time now for a agronomic update from Central Iowa as we take a look at how the crops are faring across that part of the Corn Belt here as we near the back half of the growing season. We also want to talk about corn rootworm pressure and more. Joining us, LG Seeds Agronomy Division Manager Dave Hoy is with us here today. Dave, welcome back to the show. It is great to talk with you again. Hope all is well.
Everything's great. Thank you for having me, Jesse. I really appreciate coming on today.
Let's get that update first from Central Iowa, and I know you and I were chatting about this a little bit off the air. A very good-looking corn crop, and I presume a good-looking soybean crop as well across much of your region.
Yeah, it's really scary good how things are looking right now. With the heat we've had, coupled with the amount of moisture that has blessed us, everything's looking really quite good. It's growing very linearly and very evenly. And that's what we want. We want that pollination to hit the corn, and we want the soybeans to have that billion-dollar rain that it really makes those pods fill out strong. So everything is looking really good right now.
Now, as far as disease or pest pressures, I know we're going to talk rootworm here in a minute, but what else have you been hearing across the region? Have we seen an influx of anything this growing season? What are some of the key challenges I'd say we're having to deal with right now?
Yeah, the most immediate thing hitting the market right now is those southern winds really brought in some southern rust. And that's not typically something that we see in the upper Midwest. And that southern rust has been blown in with those southern winds and really starting to take its toll to get a foothold into the corn crop. Now, southern rust is not something we typically look for and we typically see, but we had a little bit of it last year moving north, and we're seeing it again this year. And southern rust can be a problem, especially later on in the season, as it really starts to desiccate that corn crop and really bring those yields down. So it's something to keep an eye on, maybe even add another fungicide trip to the roster to help protect the yield that's in those corn plants right now.
Well, of course, getting out there and scouting, I know, is so important when it comes to issues like southern rust, and also when it comes to corn rootworm pressure. I know that's another thing that we have just contended with for years, I feel like, in our cornfields. Talk about corn rootworm pressure this growing season. What have you been seeing, Dave?
So it's an interesting complex right now. When we look back on all the scouting we did last year, just to see what the beetle traps caught last fall, we noticed that there's an increase in corn rootworm pressure in various parts of the country. Doesn't matter if you're in South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, or even out in Delmarva on the eastern coast. Corn rootworm is becoming more and more of an increased problem out there. Now you couple that this year with the amount of rain that we've had and the great growing conditions that most of our area has endured, that gets masked. The injuries don't show up as much because the corn has plenty of moisture. And so we have this huge problem that's growing, but yet the moisture is keeping the corn plants green and growing. And so a lot of people don't even think about that rootworm as being a big problem out there. And like you said, scouting is important. And that's why we need to get out and look at those fields and really dig in a little deeper.
How do we scout for corn rootworm? What are some tips you'd share?
So the most powerful tool that you have in the shop from a farmer's perspective, it's not the Porta Power, it's not the Milwaukee drill, it's not the tractor, it's the shovel. Guys got to go out there with that shovel and start digging some plants. Really, pick 20 plants in the middle of the field, haul them back to the shop, soak them in a bucket of water, and really look at those roots. Because when we start to peel back those roots, Iowa State University has a fantastic rootworm rating scale. There are 3 nodes on every root. And if the corn rootworms prune one of those roots, then that's a score of 1. If they have 2 fully gone, that's a score of 2. And if all 3 nodes are chewed off, that's a score of 3. And that's a very bad day. So when we scout, we dig up those and we see how many roots are gone. And those rootworms will prune those off. So that's the first and most immediate thing you can do when you're scouting for rootworm, is to dig that plant, wash it off, and inspect those roots.
I would have to think, if you have high pressure, would lead me to believe that you need to prioritize things differently when it comes to harvest time if you have high rootworm pressure, Dave?
Absolutely. Once you dig those roots and you see, oh man, I've got some root pruning that has happened in this field, that should trigger in a farmer's mind, this is a field that may have potential to lean over when we get those September and October winds. So that would be a field that I would prioritize harvest on, just to make sure that I got into it before the corn leans over.
What about for the future, Dave? I mean, thinking about management as we get into next season, I would have to think traits, things of that nature, modes of action. What do we need to think about as we prepare for next growing season?
Absolutely. There are things that we can do this fall that will actually help us next year if we're going corn on corn. One of those things to consider is beetle bombing, or spraying an insecticide at tasseling or just right after tasseling. The thing to remember is, though, when you're out walking your fields, the very first corn rootworms that come out, whether they're northern corn rootworm or western corn rootworm, the first ones that you see are the males. And that's great to kill them. It makes you feel better. But you really want to kill the females. The female corn rootworms are the ones that emerge later, that lay their eggs later. Those are the ones that we need to beetle bomb. By killing those, you're going to reduce the amount of eggs that are laid for that field for next year. And then certainly when we get into planning for next year, LG Seeds recommends that you change your mode of action, maybe add an insecticide at planting if possible, or even rotate to soybeans or another non-host crop. Those are things that can break that rootworm cycle. And there's certainly fields out there that have such a high pressure that it's a viable consideration to go to soybeans or another non-host crop, just to break up and let those beetles die off, let those larvae die off, because they don't have any corn roots to chew on, and then the next year get back into corn. It's not a bad idea to break that up.
Dave, great insight. Anything else about corn rootworm or anything else from LG Seeds you would add here on the show today?
Yeah, LG Seeds offers a variety of different products that we can help. In regards to traits, we've got the Duracade Vipteras, the Smart Stacks, the Smart Stack Pros. There are a lot of different products that you can choose from. And you can plant reliably and go out there and have consistent results with the LG Seeds products.
Well, Dave, I know if folks have questions, they can reach out to their local LG Seeds agronomist, representative, dealer, or online lgseeds.com. I'm sure a lot of ways to get in touch, right, Dave?
Absolutely. Any of those will get you to the right people. And we have a vast amount of testing and knowledge that we really roll into our dealers, customers, and agronomists. There's a ton of training out there. So any questions at all, reach out. We'll be glad to help.
lgseeds.com for more. With that, agronomy division manager for LG Seeds, Dave Hoy, thanks for joining us here today on the program. We appreciate the time.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.